Talk about bikes, you say? Okay, let's do this. I'm near Area 51, deep in the woods. Wait, that doesn't work. There's no woods by Area 51. Okay, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, but look what I found. What's that? Oh, SWM RS300R. Well, good day, people of the internet. Today we're going to talk about the SWM RS300R off-road and dual sport motorcycle. So who am I and why am I here talking about this here Italian motorcycle? It's a long story, but I'll try to keep it super short. Worked in the moto industry for almost 2.5 decades, 20 years, 25 years. Been a lifelong dirt bike rider. Back in the day, I ran a company that built a lot of parts for the Husqvarna version of this when they were an Italian brand. So the TE 300, like '09. So during that time, I had a company built a lot of aftermarket parts for these. Always loved when this chassis came out in '08, I believe. Fell in love with it. It had a TXC 450. Before that, I had a whole bunch of other Huskies. But long story short, I've had a long history with Husqvarna and dirt bikes and motorcycles in general. I'm a dual sport rider, an adventure rider, a street rider. I've owned hundreds of bikes. I've ridden 300 or 400 bikes probably. So I have a pretty good background and plethora of bikes to reflect on. Just for reference, I came off a 2021 TE 250i fuel injected Husqvarna. Love that bike, great bike. Did some suspension upgrades and a few things to that, and it was an awesome bike. So that'll kind of let you know where I'm at while I give you the background and my thoughts on this here motorcycle. All right, thank you. Here we go. So a quick background on what an SWM is. Basically, when the Pierre Group that owns KTM and everything bought Husqvarna, they abandoned the factory, they abandoned the workers. They just wanted the name, put it on a white KTM, which is fine. Great bikes, diversified their line. They can do what they want. They bought it, right? I have no beef with that. It did leave the factory in Versailles, I think you say it, Italy, vacant. The workers laid off, whatever. Uh, Influx of money, bought the name, bought the tooling, hired a bunch of the people back. I believe there's probably still some of the original Husqvarna people working there, if not a lot of them, from that area, and are building this machine. So it's, in essence, it's an upgraded 2009 TE 310. And by upgraded, I mean, like now it has nicer stuff. It just does. I've owned a bunch of these, and this has the KYB suspension. It still has the excellent Brembo brakes. The EFI is better, probably because of the Athena / Get ECU. There may be a different injector. For a 50 state legal bike, runs amazing. There is a few uncorking things you do to it that's super simple that takes it from like a kitten, like it feels like a KLX 300 or, you know, something with 20-ish horsepower, 25 horsepower. And then you pull this big plug out of the airbox and do a couple other little quick things. And then it feels more like 35 horsepower, I'd say, right in that range, which honestly, I'm here in the Pacific Northwest. I've ridden here most of my life. Just did a big trip down to California and back. So I've ridden this in a variety of conditions, and for the kind of riding I like to do up here in the Pacific Northwest, which is a lot of just tight single track, super fun trail, a lot of it really technical, some of it very technical. Uh, anyway, I love a trail bike like this, where a lot of, I'll get on this rant later, but I look at this as a really good trail bike meant for riding trails, where most guys are riding KTMs and stuff like that, which is a, you know, a 50 plus horsepower snappy bike meant for racing Ertzberg and shit like that. Well, this bike is not made for that. It will kind of do that stuff, but it's so much easier to ride. And that's one of the points I want to make in this whole review, is that there's dirt bikes, trail bikes, you know, like, because I'm old, so back in the day, we had trail bikes. We had IT 175s, we had KDX 200s. They came with tool bags on the back and pull axles and skid plates and lights and lighting coils and wide ratio transmissions and big tanks and all the stuff that we buy these bikes. And then, sorry, I'm chewing on a piece of candy. Anyway, back to the show. um, so we kind of, it seems like we got away from having these cool like IT and WR and KDX and all these cool off-road bikes and all of the, you know, the awesome Husqvarnas and Montesas and all these bikes that were made for riding off-road. Where now it seems like we've drifted so far away from that. Okay, rant over. So this is a trail bike. Cool thing about it, made in Italy. I mean, there's Italian parts all over this, and this is supposed to be a price point bike because it's $8,000 for a 50 state legal 300 4-stroke. So you roll this out of the dealer for 8 grand and put a plate on it and go have some fun. It's got a 6-speed EFI. This motor's been around forever, super proven. I myself and about 10 of my friends over a period in the mid 2000s, the late 2000s, beat the crap out of these. Up in the Pacific Northwest, bunch of guys racing these. There's a great dealer, Bill's in Salem. There's a great dealer, which was Tasky's, and they just flooded the market with all these excellent Husqvarnas, which had this motor, and it had this frame, and it had this swing arm, and it had these wheels, and it had those brakes, and it had that triple clamp, and kind of that tank. And so this is a proven platform. It's been a great, durable, beat the crap out of it trail bike for a long time. I mean, I know guys that have just pound the crap out of these bikes. They just keep going, burp, way you go. So anyway, blah 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 blah. Kelly, I get it. I get it. It's a cool bike. It's made in Italy. It's a proven platform. You really like it. Why should I buy it? Actually, I'm not here to sell you a bike. I'm just here to tell you about a cool trail bike. So here's what I like about it, what drew me to it. Obviously, I have a long background with this platform. Always loved this platform. Worked on a friend of mine's TXC 510 the other day. Took it for a trail ride afterwards. Fell in love with it all over again. Tried to buy that bike from him. Uh, Ended up seeing this. Had to have it. I like the idea of the 300 for the trails we have. I did put a Recluse auto clutch in it, which I usually don't do. And actually, I've run lots of Recluses and love them in various bikes like KTM 500s for dual sporting. You can't beat it because you can get in the tight technical stuff and, burp, 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 and you're not stalling, you're not working the clutch, you're just having a good time. And I like that about this. So it took a super easy to ride bike and made it easier to ride. We'll get into that more depth later. But what I really like about this bike is it is made in Italy. Everything, the rims, the tubes, the everything about it is made in Italy, which is great. I support that. It has great components on it. Like I said, it's got proven stuff. These are some of the best brakes I've ever used. Always loved these brakes. They're the older style Brembos. And I don't know if they're really any different than the newer ones. I know the discs are different, but these things are crazy strong. It has KYB suspension, which every tuner on the planet knows how to make work excellent. It's got a proven 6-speed motor, kind of an old school 4-stroke with a little more compression braking than the newer ones. Revs a little bit slower, but great trail bike motor, right? Uh, I love the quality of it. All the brake lines are braided steel. I mean, I don't see where it's got a Spall fan, not a cheap Panasonic fan that blows nothing. It's got the real European Spall fan. Uh, it's got EFI. It's got the Athena Get ECU. It's got a Unifilter air filter. I mean, everywhere you look, it's quality components. I don't see where they cheaped out anywhere. It doesn't have the Brake Tech brakes. It doesn't have what is the Chinese suspension. It's actually on my, so I have an SWM 650 and it has fast ace forks. It doesn't have that, which that one does, and we'll talk about that bike later, which love that bike too. So anyway, it's a quality trail bike, and that's what I like about it. It's 8 grand with a plate, any state, uh, and it's just it's a great bike overall. Like, so riding it, let's talk about riding it for a minute. I was down in Southern California. I got this at GP Motorcycles in San Diego. Great shop, treated me awesome. uh, Had it sitting on the floor all ready to go, rolled it off there. put it in my bike. I ride up here in the Pacific Northwest, which is all like deep woods and super technical and that kind of stuff. Down there, which I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this are probably from California. Down there, it's a lot more like decomposed granite and sandy and rocky and, Jeep trails and not so much single trail. I rode a bunch of areas down there. I did find some cool single track areas and some fun stuff. Uh, anyway, the bike seemed to work good and all that. Before I uncorked it, which we'll get to the uncorking part later, I rode it down outside of Temecula with some pretty high level riders that wanted to do these massive hill climbs. And this thing was corked up in 25 horsepower mode. And holy crap, there was areas I literally wide open, shifting between first and second, ooh, up these hills forever. Sorry, motorcycle, but that's what you're going to get. Um, and it did it. And in hindsight, had I had these tires, which I'll talk about that later too, these Motos tires, love them. Uh, had I had these tires, the stock tires were pretty good, but they're more for mud. So in that sandy stuff, they didn't do all that great. And it doesn't matter anyway. It wouldn't have pulled it. Once I uncorked it, had I taken it back down there, I would have had a good time. I struggled down there. I was with high level riders riding big hills, trying to hold it wide open and make it out of these canyons. And it was crazy. Anyway, so I've ridden that to super single track and everything in between. There's a place outside of LA where cool flowy trails, nice hill climbs, some pretty serious technical hill climbing stuff. I'll show all this in the video and probably overlay my ugly face with it right here. I'll put it right here so you don't have to see me. Anyway, um, I think I have a really good feeling about this bike as far as what it's capable and what it can do. And so from a dual sport perspective, because it does have a plate, this is a dirt bike, trail bike with a plate. It's not a dual sport bike. Does have a 6-speed transmission, but it's a pretty close ratio one. So right now you could comfortably cruise 45, 50 miles an hour. So you're not going to hit the highway for 100 miles on this thing. You could, it would suck. Um, it does have an amazingly good seat for a dirt bike, so that wouldn't be a problem, but beat all day, that would be a problem. You could gear it up, but then it won't really work very well off-road because even with this gearing, first is about right. With the auto clutch is perfect. Um, so that's the situation with this bike. It's a bike. It'd be great, like living down here, like we're in the Pacific Northwest on the Oregon coast. I mean, I could ride it from here up to an area and ride around and come back, or ride it into town and get stuff, or just ride it around just to have fun, right? Just in town or on these back roads, or maybe a little bit of highway. Well, you could do 101. It's on 45, 50 on that. Anyway, the short of it is, it's not a long range dual sport bike. So if that's what you're looking for, you can turn this off now after you hit like and subscribe, because you can be the first person to be a subscriber. Now I think I have a few. Anyway, maybe I'll get a few more. Maybe I'll lose a few. Uh, so anyway, it's not a dual sport bike. If you want that, this is not the bike for you. They do make a 500 version of this, and you could gear that up, and that's actually a pretty good dual sport bike because I've ridden many versions of that bike as well. So what this is a great trail bike for anybody from an intermediate to a weekend racer. It has a lot more ability than, say, something like a KLX 300. And honestly, like I said, I came off a 21 TE250i. I'm no slower on this bike in the woods. It's about the same, and honestly, this one doesn't wear me out as much. And this is where I want to talk about this kind of bike and a trail bike. With a more old school 4-stroke motor like this, it's smoother. It's like everything's more deliberate. Where you get on a modern 2-stroke, and I'm not bashing them. I love 2-strokes. Had millions of them. Do I still have one or two? Probably have some floating around in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. Anyway, they're much more jerky and much more spontaneous, which makes them great for the technical stuff, right? You can pop over rocks, you can, do these quick maneuvers that you need to do. And this will do it, but you do have to be more deliberate. Like you come up to a log crossing, especially with the Recluse, you need to get on it a little bit earlier and, be a little more methodical in your approach, where on a 2-stroke, you can pretty much get right to it and you're over it, So that's where the two-stroke does the gnarly terrain better, and that's why, you know, everybody rides them for that kind of stuff. For an all-day trail bike, I'll take this over that bike all day long, and here's why. It's super smooth. So I haven't ridden this style of bike for a while. I used to ride these all the time, had a bunch of really cool built versions of it, which I'll show some pictures over here of that. Um, One thing I forgot, and I used to ride a lot of 125s off-road, which is a crazy thing in itself, but it makes you a much better rider, I'll tell you that. Um, is that these bikes, like at the end of the day, I'll go for a ride, and I like a ride with guys that are my pace, you know, which is a pretty good, or faster, like my buddy Scott, you know, he's a A-class guy that does well in the A-class, and, you know, chasing his butt around is all I can do. And this bike, at the end of the day, I'm half as tired because it doesn't have that jerky response. It's not doing things quick that I'm having to correct for. I can get in a groove and do whoop, 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 whoop. And with the Recluse, it's a magic carpet ride through the woods. It has like okay, the suspension's pretty good on this bike. It's undersprung for me, but what I really like about it is it's like really trail bike smooth. Yet when you boogie and get in, you know, race mode, it doesn't get floppy. It doesn't get loose. It doesn't do stupid stuff. In fact, it almost gets better. Um, so just the chassis and the handling and the suspension really, and the motor really work together to make this just a really uh, just easy bike to ride. It's a great trail bike that you can ride at very fast speeds if you want to. I mean, yeah, dual exhaust is a little much, and it's probably going to come off someday because it weighs a ton, because it's got catalytic converters in there. And you get through a whoop field and get swapping, you can kind of feel that weight hanging out there. So anyway, let's talk about the downside now that we've talked about the weight of the mufflers. I love the look of the mufflers, and I love a quiet bike. So that aspect, I love it. I did take one off and it weighed way too much, and there's two of them. Easy way to drop a ton of weight on this bike and probably gain a little horsepower. But I don't want a loud bike, so I'm going to try to figure that out. So that's an issue. The close ratio tranny is kind of an issue, but if your mission isn't to do that anyway, which this bike isn't built for that, is it an issue? I don't know. It is, I guess, because you can't go 60 down the highway all day on it. But a big issue is the tank. The tank is small. It's 2 gallon. It does get pretty good mileage. So, I mean, I've done 50-mile gnarly off-road rides and been down a ways, but made it. Um, the plastic is a little bit brittle, and the some of the stickers and stuff are already coming off, but I mean, whatever. This thing, this has been drug under fences. It's been crashed a few times. I ride through stuff that's face slappers and basically like going through a car wash for hours, you know. So that they hold up this well is amazing. But it just has really nice components on it that are all well thought out. The tank, I mean, everywhere you look, it's just well thought out. And I'm showing some pictures up here, I'm sure, that shows some of the details. And like the subframe it's a work of art. It's like just the brackets and the welds and how they put it together. It's a work of art. Here's some pictures of that. The wiring loom's really nice. I think I've put about 500 hard ass miles on this bike, and I don't think I've broke anything. Have I? Oh, I broke a lever before I got the handguards on. Fastway handguards, love them. And bar mounts. I'll do another one about all the aftermarket stuff I put on. Most of it's ergonomic and comfort and control. I like control stuff. Um, and some of it's convenient. Some of it's performance, like the tires. And we'll get into that more because, like I said, I want to take the muffler off and do some stuff. But blah, blah, blah. The reason I made this video, and I probably should have said this at the beginning, is when I was doing some research on this bike, because, you know, like I said, I rode my buddy's TXC 510, gotten heat over this platform, thought the 300 would be perfect, which honestly it is. I love it because you can just, oh, it's a 300, you can just pin it. Where there's not a lot of bikes you get to, riding a slow bike fast, that's the thing. There's not a lot of bikes you get to just pin. I'm chasing my friends on their 300s. I'm like, Brad, Brad, Brad. I feel like Johnny Racer, but it's easy and I'm having a good time. Where if I did that on my 250, my TE 250, I'd be in the weeds. I'd be dead. So, and the same thing when I rode 125s, it was the same thing in the woods. You just pin it, and you've seen Carson Brown and how he rides. And no, I can't ride anything like that dude, but that's the idea. It's just so fun and flowy, and you learn clutch and you learn shifting and all that. And this bike is like that, but it does it on like a trail bike level, so it's just smooth and easy to ride and really fun to ride. And at the end of the day, I have twice as much energy as I did on my other bike. So there it is, everything you wanted to know and more about the SWM RS300R motorcycle. 50 state legal, $8,000, growing dealer network. Oh, let's talk about that really quick. Look at me, I just blah, blah, blah. I was going to sign off, but I got to say something about the dealer network. And I did look into that beforehand. It's small. The distributor very much supports the dealers. They're doing a big push, bringing a couple models back. The guys are really trying to sell bikes over there, and I think it's a quality trail bike that you should consider. Uh, and the support is good. I mean, here's the thing: you go into a Honda or Yamaha dealer, you're just one of thousands of people that are trying to get parts for this bike that are back ordered. Uh, you need a part for this, you can pretty much call the distributor and get it directly. And if they can't find it, somebody else will. And I'll be there to help too. There's a pretty good community. A bunch of the Husky parts fit this thing. I honestly don't see anywhere this thing's going to break down. I have, like I said, an SWM 650, which is a dual sport bike based on the TE 630 Husqvarna, which is a great bike. And I've yet to put wheel bearings on it. I did notice the steering bearings are going bad. That's kind of my fault. But I've had like zero issues with that bike, and I've pounded it pretty hard all over Yosemite and up in the Sierra Nevadas and all over the. I took it to Giant Loop Rally. I've been to a bunch of rallies. I've done parts of the discovery routes. I've done all kinds of crap on that bike. I've ridden it 200-300 miles a day down the pavement. Had zero issues with it. I go exploring deep into the Sierra Nevadas by myself, and I don't feel like, oh, I'm going to have any issues with it. And I'm starting to get the same feeling about this bike. Just overlooking it, the quality looks great. It just seems like a great trail bike. So anyway, put it on your little map of considerations, and maybe buy outside the box and get a cool Italian dirt bike out of it. That's it. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Later. Do they just stamp you guys out of the same orange mold? All you guys come out of the same mold? Just puppy, another with KTM rider. KTM rider. KTM rider. There's a couple more.
Pretty much it.
Is that your crank seal leaking?
Yeah. Can't you hear it?
Uh-huh.
My main bearing rattling too.
I can hear it.